we're going to reconvene. Even if you mind, we'll probably still reconvene. I would like to start off with a doozy. Pardon the colloquialism. I would like to open up a question to the whole panel. How should IWU treat a poster or depiction or hanging of the Confederate flag? Should it be censored or protected under free speech?
Oh yeah, I'll answer, that's fine. No. I think consistent with what I've already said tonight. I think we have to be willing to say there are going to be some things that are offended. If it's not just offense for offense sake, can this be part of a discussion? Because we've got people from the South, and some who would say, this is a particular symbol for me, and here's what it means for me. And others who might say, they may be from the South, and they say, no, 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 for me, this is reprehensible, we can't show this. So I think as a poster, yeah, I'm more on the side of let's have discussions instead of let's sanitize everything. So heaven forbid somebody leave this institution and not know there is a discussion about whether or not the Confederate flag should be posted. So yeah, that would be my answer. It's like as long as it's something to provoke a discussion, lead somewhere, I'm fine with that. Yeah, in terms of hanging it up, yeah, that's one of those things that pushes. You know, how tolerant are we? How tolerant are we of different views? We'll see.
I think that gets into the messiness. I think maybe that you were talking about too. Yeah. And I would like to say that I would side with Dr. Conrad on this. That would be a harder one for me, having lived in the South and knowing people who have been affected negatively by that. You know, I drive by a house every morning when I take my daughter to school that has the American flag and the Confederate flag hanging in every morning. I just get mad. I'm going to be honest. That's a really tough question. But I do think discussion needs to happen. You know, what does this flag symbolize? And it symbolizes different things for different people. You know, I think we recognize that, but how do we deal with that? And how do we also come to a loving agreement about how to handle that on campus? That has to happen.
Along those lines, free speech is not just free talking. Free speech comes with accountability. It's not just running around or slapping a picture on the wall and not allowing everything to be put back. So what you're saying, having it up, okay, are you going to talk about it, or are you just going to leave it there for people to get mad about?
I think it goes back to the need for discretion, right? What is the context of the display of the flag itself? You know, is it in a way that is blatantly and intentionally disrespectful? You know what I mean? Is it like painting, like flying the flag, right, and running around and being obnoxious, right? Like there's context and there are reasons, right, for displaying symbols. And I think the administration would be responsible to address each situation individually, rather than trying to ban symbols, right, or just suppress them, right? Like we said, address them respectfully and try to use symbols respectfully. All symbols, not just the Confederate flag.
I want to just keep this spinning for just a moment longer. Some have said that it is time for the Confederate flag to make a move from the flagpole to the museum. Is there a sense in which the public display of offensive symbols is harmful to a learning community? And we'll just take one comment on that question.
think that question is more relevant to someone in the South. I don't see this institution hanging a Confederate flag. It wouldn't make sense. So, I mean, in all honesty, that's a question that's probably better for a university in the South, because free speech and speech issues are not the same everywhere. Right? So I don't know that we can talk about it in theoretical terms, but for me, I go from Canada, my apologies, Confederate flag doesn't mean anything to me. I mean, it has no significance. I mean, that heart doesn't go pitter patter when I see it or anything. It's not anything, so there's no context.
But I think the context of Marion and the racial tension that has existed in our community, I think that's huge. And I think that if we displayed that without some type of explanation or...
But we weren't fighting the Confederacy, so it wouldn't make sense for us to fly the Confederate flag as an institution. I mean, that would make no sense whatsoever. I would be puzzled by that. So I don't think that's why I say it's more of an academic question. So I don't think that I would see no reason to do that here.
All right. How does our Christian, sometimes which could be characterized as pathological need to be in one accord with one another, feed into our resistance to or fear of free speech?
I think we confuse unity with unification or uniformity. And so if the goal is to make everyone conform on every single doctrinal issue, that's just going to be awful. So there has to be agreement on the fundamentals, but there has to be charity with those outside of that. But I agree that there is a sense that we have to agree on everything. So we wind up just pretending or being quiet. People not saying, well, I think different. Somehow that's bad. I don't know how you get everybody in one court anyway. Pretty small cars.
Yeah, I don't think you would be in a court if you were agreeing on everything. Because then you're not talking about how, because then everyone has different opinions, so you're just going to be pretending that you agree with it. So then you're not talking about the issues, you're not talking about how you feel. So it would just be a case of...
And I would say, historically with the church, the way that they have come together in that one accord idea is, through the traditions that we have with the Apostles' Creed, the Nicene Creed. I mean, we agree on the basic, tenets of the Christian faith. You've got the Trinity and salvation and different things like that. And so, does every other social issue that changes with the times need to fall into that? No, I don't think so. I mean, I think that we have in and out issues and, issues of salvation and Trinity and other things like that are really the important pieces. I'm not sure that something like Confederate flag or, LGBTQ or, things like that, like, should we really allow these things to divide us to the point that we have allowed them to divide us already?
I think an important part of being part of the Christian intellectual environment is keeping in mind with all discourse that we are all created Moderator. We all have value, right? And we have that value apart from our ideas and beliefs. That we are a unified body. We are the body of Christ. But that does not equate to just identification with one another and all of our views on ambiguous issues that are not black and white.
To what extent should other religions be allowed to practice and express their viewpoints at a Christian college? I'll give just a small example. In the United States, unarguably the most beautiful implication of Gothic architecture is at Princeton Chapel, which was originally created as a seminary for students to learn and discuss the Christian God. That same building now houses services from many different faiths throughout different holy days. I'm curious if the fact that Princeton is now secular makes that experience okay, or if there's some loss there. And at the same time, at an institution like ours, what it would look like and what kind of community it fosters to be more open with religious expression at this institution. Answer either one of those in any way you see them.
As to the Princeton thing, church is not a building. And so, personally, I don't think that it's anything to get too terribly argumentative about. Yes. But as far as having other religions in a Christian university, inevitably there are people within our Christian circles, that Christian schools, that do not share the same faith somehow. But having their voice in the conversation, I think, does add something. And so, I guess, again, it's just back to listening to each other and ministering to each other in general.
I think it depends on how you look at those who are coming from different traditions. And I think that the statement made was very nice, that you treat people who are coming, we have students who are atheists and coming from probably a variety of different backgrounds, not all are Christians. But we wouldn't necessarily, as a Christian institution, we wouldn't place all institutions or all religions as being the same, right? That's where I think we get lost, is when we say, well, if you're a Muslim or a Buddhist or a Christian, it's all the same. I don't think they are. And so if we lose that distinction, I think that's where I think we lose our way. And because at that point it makes no difference. If you can, that to me is where we need to stay anchored. And I think we will, as long as we're still connected with the Wesleyan Church. That because if we move away from there, the Wesleyan Church should rightfully kick us to the curb. Because you have to maintain that Christian identity while having charity towards others who think and believe differently. Yeah, because you do want to have those conversations. Yeah, they're wonderful conversations to have.
So far, we have primarily discussed the disadvantages of IWU's speech policy. Can anyone attest that policies such as this can be beneficial?
No, I don't think it is. I'll just go and say I don't think it's helpful. I think that when certain topics are restricted and the ways in which we talk about them are restricted, that puts the student body at a disservice for once you leave our institution. And if you understand the Christian community is like this, then you're missing out on so many other options of what Christian community can look like.
Yeah, I think we're trying to reflect Christ. It's not sanitized. Christ was with everyone. He's with the sinners and the prostitutes. He's in the muck. So somehow our concept of holiness has to embrace the muddy, messy bit of this life. Not that we say, well, this is just as good as what we have, but Christ came to redeem. So how do we open up those conversations? And I think that it's hard to do, no question. There's discomfort. I think we need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Don't ask me how we do that. We need to get there. It's uncomfortable.
a recurring theme throughout Scripture, as I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with, is that the tongue itself is a sword. I mean, it is authority that God has delegated to us to decide for ourselves what we say, right? To speak our own minds, to speak from our hearts, right? That our words reflect our hearts, that they reflect who we are. And coming to a university, I mean, the tongue as a sword, we are here to be trained to wield that sword. Because it does not tear down the physical body, it tears down the spirit, right? But if we are not trained and taught to wield that, in a way that is intentional, right? In a way that loves others the way they ought to be loved, the way that Christ loved others, then, we are unprepared. But you are not being prepared when that sword is dull or it is edgeless, right? And even then, as hard as we may try, we still cannot remove the edges of that sword. We cannot make the tongue safe, no matter how hard we try. So let's learn how to use it respectfully, intentionally, and as Christians and as Christ loved us originally.
One of the most interesting fields and subjects of debate over the issues of free speech is coming to a head in the area of internet and internet censorship. One of the pertinent points of discussion to this is the recent imposition of a firewall at in Wesleyan that is censoring some very specific words and strings and phrases. I'm curious, pertaining to this, do you think that there is, that in an effort to create a safe learning environment, which has been several times vocalized, the purpose of that firewall, what are the risks associated with it? And are there other ways that that same end could have been accomplished? Or is it beneficial end? So I'll leave that open if you wanted to address the question.
It was my understanding that they took that out.
No, I think there was a new one put in.
Yeah,
Was it this year?
If my understanding is correct, and I've been out of things for a little bit, but there was a firewall in place all the way back to the late 90s, up until 2012, which was removed and only recently re-imposed.
And this goes way back, but I thought when I first came here, they actually toyed with not having any filtering for a while. That was like in the early 2000s. But then they went to a blocking filter, and those things are challenging, especially if you're trying to do certain types of research. That's
Sorry, can I clarify real quickly?
Sure.
That kind of the nature of this firewall, it was just new information to me. One of the issues with group questions, but the firewall actually monitors. It does not block. So I think that's important in discussion.
News to me.
We've done a couple stories on it in the session this year, and recently we asked for some student reactions to it, and I liked what one girl said. She said something like, you can't force someone to change their ways, if they're looking at something they shouldn't be. You can't force them, they're going to find a way around it. And so I think with this firewall, it's going to make them, I think, a little bit more upset because they're being forced to do something. It's just not what should be happening. If they really do want to change, they'll talk to someone. It's not going to be because someone from the administration is going to talk to them. Like they'll just be embarrassed and then, okay, what can I do? What can I do to not get caught this time? And so, yeah, to me, it just kind of bothers me because then I do think another thing is that people can just then be very uncomfortable to look at anything. Maybe they won't get in trouble for it, but just knowing the back of the mind that someone from administration could be looking at this right now. The girl needs to find
I do remember reading that story in Sojourn, and it was funny because this afternoon I was looking up some stuff on LGBTQ, actually for our church. They're trying to work on their constitution and bylaws so that the pastor does not have to perform a gay wedding. And I thought, as I was typing it, and I thought, this is probably being monitored. I wonder if I'm going to get in trouble. Oh, well. But it is, I understand the students' concern. It can feel like a little bit like Big Brother. I also understand administrators' concerns. It's like, how do we do this in a good way? My hope is that there'll be good conversations. And that there's a place for students and maybe faculty to speak back, say, this doesn't work, or could we try X? Because you're exactly right. If students want to find ways around, oh wow, they were creative. I have an 18-year-old son, and he can do stuff with computers that just amazes me. So, some of which is probably illegal. He doesn't go here.
I think we all agree that privacy is a dangerous thing. Right? I mean, privacy, especially with the advent of the internet and as advanced as it has become, right? Anything is available to you. Right? You can, through private browsers, right? Through roundabout browsers, like you can access black markets. You can purchase people, right, on the internet, right? That is one of the dangers of it. I read weird things that, are being monitored. Yes, exactly. But it's dangerous, yes. But we are young adults now. We are at a time in our lives where we must learn to choose to be vulnerable. The time is over where our vulnerability is kind of forced on us, right? With parents, you live with parents, right? You're vulnerable to them. Well, now it is up to us to seek counsel, right? To seek it from those who are wiser than us, those who have lived in this world far longer than we have, and seen many more things. But we have to make that choice. And when we have mechanisms like this in place, it does remove some element of that decision that should be made on our behalf. But that it is an important lesson to learn that as we go on as adults, we will have to choose to be vulnerable. No one will just intervene for us. And so that is one thing I think that should be taken into consideration.
We have time for a single question here. Out of the discussion, I'm going to go from scratch here, kind of synthesize the last three questions. There is a possibility that a dichotomy and between safety and providing a safe environment for students could actually be at odds with a open and rigorous intellectual learning environment. Could you speak a little bit to that possible dichotomy and how we approach it in its existence or non-existence?
It's a really broad question. I think you can have both. You can have safety, but the safety doesn't come from outside all the decisions being made for you. The safety comes in having spaces like this, not just in the classroom, where students, faculty, staff, administrators can have really open conversations, whether it's about Confederate flags, sexual orientation issues, whatever the issues have to need to be. And we can find ways to express that so we don't have to feel like the entire campus is one giant guy's dorm, because guys don't put anything on the walls. That's a sexist statement, sorry, but it's true. You guys know this, right? Yeah, okay. So is there a way that we can have safety? Yeah, but safety is not the absence of conflict. And I think that's the misdiagnosis. If we don't have any conflict, then that makes things safe. No, but then we never learn, and we never teach students how to interact, how to have those conversations, and that's not safe. So we can have safety, but it means having the conversations. And being okay with students and faculty and staff making mistakes. And not being too quick to jump all over them because they hold a view that might be racist or sexist or just problematic, right? And just get over this ideal of perfection. Because it plagues the Christian community. And you wind up with people just hiding everything. Just terrible. Anyway, that's my thought. I think they can go hand in hand, but we have to really find what it means to be safe, right? Yeah, I think so.
In our department, we talk a lot about not trying to divide what is Christian and what is secular. So we're just trying to talk about what is human. And I guess if you are secure in your faith in Christ, there's safety in that. And so exploring what is human and learning in that, this should not be something that shakes you. And so having this, even in the way we speak, I guess, dividing what is Christian and what is secular, and not just looking at everything with the safety that you have in Christ's salvation. I think that sometimes affects our learning.
We will have time for just one final question, and I'll have it be one from Stephen Porter. And he asks, if all truth is God's truth, then why are certain members of IWU's campus and community hesitant to let that truth defend itself in a free marketplace of ideas?
I think it goes back, I mean, I know I've touched on this before, but I think it goes back to what we are allowed to say, and even what Lauren mentioned about people are, what goes outside of our community, about our community. And, I don't know if maybe the powers that be think that messy is not attractive. But I think it depends on who's looking at that. I tend to see a lot of the value in, like you said, going through the muddy places, and if we really say that we are a learning institution, then this should be the safe place for everyone to continue to figure out their stances on things within the boundaries of our faith. And what one person of faith thinks about an issue is not necessarily going to be what another person of faith thinks about that same issue. But thank God, His grace covers all, right? But I really think it comes down to that of, what is sort of allowed, and I'll do air quotes for that because, what exactly is allowed, and I think we should explore that. But and I think maybe sometimes there's an element of fear about that. Oh, well, maybe these outside people aren't going to know that we're trying to figure this out, and what we have to present is this polished, finished look or whatever. So I think maybe fear plays into that, not letting that truth come through.
I think maybe a direct response to the question and piggyback off of that is that letting, I guess, the truth defend itself, to use those words, is scary. Fear is a major element of that. And to quote Lewis about Aslan, right? And, referencing to the question before is that he is no taint blind, right? But he is good. And that reflection of God is that the truth, for the truth to be exposed to the world is scary, right? That is the truth that we have founded our lives upon. So of course, there is a serious element of fear involved in doing so, especially in an academic environment, right, where anti-God ideas are everywhere. They're around every corner, right? But we as Christians are called to tear down those ideas, right? And to instead build up the ideas of truth of Christ, right?
Thank you so much. Can we give our panelists a hand, please? So, by way of closing remarks, I would first like to say that SGA is the students' forum for making change happen. Your SGA members are happy to be able to try to voice your opinion and to be able to help you in these matters. And at the same time, if you have an issue that is interesting to the student body as a whole, you are more than welcome to contact the SOTR, who are always looking for the next most interesting story. Robert Jensen, who is perhaps the greatest living theologian, characterized God as being roomy. There is space for a multiplicity of ideas, and to be able to voice these things and to be able to talk about them is the kind of conversation that matters. God is not scared of our words, and I think that that's important to remember as we go through learning. And I want you to think about this fact. A single note resounding in an empty room at any speed is not very interesting. It's hollow is when you begin to put together multiple notes, the right notes, that chords and an orchestra of sound can make really beautiful music. I think it's a great invitation to be sharing and to be having and engaging in productive conversation. And I think back when I was part of SGA, one of the most interesting conversations that we had was when it came to dancing policy, was what kinds of rules truly help foster holiness. And there was one person who kept on pointing us toward those. How do we actually produce people who want to be like God? I want to close with this thought. It is oftentimes that I've heard people say that they want to say the truth in love. I'm just going to say whatever comes to my mind is what that's code for. And Augustine has a very helpful formula that I think is helpful as Christians to always keep in mind. Truth and factually correctness are not the same. Truth is modeled for us by Christ and is only ever what is factually correct, said at the right time, and said with the right heart. Don't let fear of saying the wrong thing scare you. The thing that we must all be convicted by, though, is saying anything with the wrong heart or at the wrong time. To be Christians that speak to our time is to know what our time requires of its Christians. Thank you all for coming. Have a great night.